Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
G'day, Phil Tarrant here, editor of Smart Property Investment. Thanks for tuning in to the show. I'm joined by my regular co-host, Vivian Kelly. Viv, how you going?
I'm good, thanks, Phil. How are you?
I'm not too bad at all. We did a podcast recently when we were chatting with a young Gen Y or a millennial, or I don't know what you want to call them.
Gen Y will
Gen
do.
Y, okay. We'll sit with Gen Y. Stephanie's a really, really good, ambitious, impressive young lady who is investing in property. She's got how many properties? Heaps.
So she's got 7 at the moment. She's 25. I think she's 26 in a matter of days.
26.
But she wants to get 22 properties before she hits the big 3-0. So she's definitely going to have to ramp up her rate of acquisition over the next few years.
It's funny, in that podcast, we had quite an interesting discussion around some of the challenges or the trials and tribulations of Gen Ys in today's modern market. And even yesterday I was watching the telly and stuff, and this debate's sort of ongoing, and I'm reading stuff in the papers now saying that, you know, most Gen Ys will never own property, or you need to save up for 10 years now in order to get enough for a deposit to be a property owner.
Yeah, I think the Gen Y debate might be the new negative gearing debate. Maybe it's just never going to go away. I think there are very strong arguments on both sides. Stephanie's obviously proving that it is possible, but I don't think that means that there are no issues surrounding Generation Y and the property ladder.
Yeah, I think it's all about affordability, and it's also, I think it's a lot about education. And I think a lot of Gen Ys, and I feel the Gen Y pain, I'm a Gen Xer, but I sort of get the challenges to actually get into property considering wage growth versus property growth. It's quite disparate right now, and you need to be saving for quite some time. But that said, anyone can get in the property, I believe, as long as you can highlight to a bank that you have serviceability, you earn enough income, you can service a mortgage. Doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a 21-year-old or a 61-year-old, you can get into property, and you can do that, Viv, by thinking about things a little bit differently. A lot of Gen Ys think property investment is owning a $1 million property 5 kilometres from the CBD, and yeah, that's probably not going to happen. I think a lot of Gen Y's problem is they think their first home is going to be their ideal home or their dream home, and I think it's about setting expectations and understanding what your goals are. And sort of with that as a basic sort of preamble, I guess today, Mitchell Shadd, we've asked him in. He's a young bloke, he's 24 years old, and he's a guy who I think is representative of the opportunities for Gen Ys today. Fair call?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Mitchell, as you said, he's 24. He's got 4 properties, and he's doing that term that's becoming more and more prevalent, which is rent vesting. So he obviously can afford property, but maybe not where he wants to live. So he's renting where he wants to live, but starting to build up that wealth through property and get on the property ladder by buying elsewhere. So he's a great example of that sort of alternative strategy for getting started.
It is. Well, let's ask him some questions. Mitchell, how you going, mate?
Good, Phil. How are you?
All right. Are you okay with Mitch? Is that
That's fine.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. Because I'll wear short and things. So,
No, that's all right.
mate, thanks for coming in. So you just heard what we're chatting about with Gen Ys and stuff. You probably hear it all yourselves. How many of if you look at your peer group, you're 24 years old, right? Young bloke. How many of your mates own 4 properties?
Well, none. Yeah, none of them. It's a big argument that comes around even in social settings for us at the moment too. And because there's a lot in the media about it and how it's becoming impossible for younger people to buy property. But I think you hit the nail on the head before when you mentioned that everyone sort of sees property as buying that home to live in, the $1 million home, within CBD range. But if you look and take it from a long-term sort of point of view, there's easy ways to get in the market. First of all, just to get your foot in the door and work it from there. So definitely possible.
You work in finance, right? You're a mortgage broker?
Yes, that's
okay.
right.
How long have you been doing that for?
About 3 years.
Okay. So you started that reasonably. Do you have a university degree? Did you go to uni or anything?
Yeah, Bachelor of Commerce.
Okay. So you did formal education, Bachelor of Commerce, and then become a mortgage broker.
Yes.
Cool. So you probably you see a lot of people, then you see how they are creating wealth through property. So you get a bit of an inside view on the benefits of investing in property. Mm-hmm. We talk about why invest in property a lot in the show. I guess we can start with that. What's your goals in investing in property?
Yeah, look, it's all about obviously security in the future. I think it's quite obvious that the property is a long-term game. You're not going to kind of get in and out of property in a year or so and make millions of dollars. That's not the way it works. I see it as a conservative way to do it, but a more sure way to build wealth as well. You look at the history of property growth and property prices, and in every area, as long as you're investing with the key principles in terms of schools, education, jobs, and you know what you're doing there, I think there's always a good opportunity for growth in a property. It just depends on how long you're willing to wait and how long you're willing to see it out. But I think it's a good entry point to get in, and there's not a huge down payment to get into property. I think obviously if we're looking at expensive properties there is, but if you're looking at sort of the lighter market, it's not. And I think over the long term there's a lot of wealth to be built. So I think it's a great way to
So
build.
for you, wealth creation?
Yes.
Is what you're playing?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you're thinking about your retirement now at 24?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Going back to my original question, are your mates thinking about the requirement?
No,
retirement
no,
at 24?
I dare say not.
So what makes you different?
I think I've come from a very financial family. My dad was an accountant. My brother did the same degree as me. It's just always been in the back of my head. And doing the degree and just always having that brain on me, it's just always been a thing. I've looked to the future. I've lived for tomorrow, which I think is massively important. And I don't know whether the other guys that are sort of around my age have that same sort of upbringing or that same sort of ideas in the back of their head. I think a lot of them are thinking about travel and different things, enjoying life, not working too hard. But end of the day, I can do that, in sort of 10, 20 years time once I've worked hard now.
So speaking of enjoying life, Mitchell, this is a discussion that we had with Stephanie back on episode 43 towards the end of September. You said that you're living for tomorrow. Do you think that you'll come to regret that later? Do you feel like you're missing out on anything? What have you sacrificed, and how do you think that sort of plays off in terms of sacrificing something today for a better tomorrow?
Yeah, it's always in the back of my head, and a lot of people do ask me that. But at the end of the day, I've been to the US for 6 weeks. I've been to a lot of different countries around the world for different holidays. Working full time doesn't stop me from doing that. And in fact, working full time and investing and having a bit of money allows me to do it better. Even now, I'm just not able to go do that 6-12 month trip overseas and backpack around the world, which is a sacrifice, but I don't see it as a massive sacrifice. I think my enjoyment in life comes from knowing that my future is going to be secured, and those sort of trips, that the 3 or 4 week trips I can have every now and then, let me experience the world as well. So I see it as a sacrifice, but it's definitely a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
So you're not just eating tuna out of a can on the floor with no furniture?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'd probably made it sound a bit bad, but no, it's not that at all. It's more, the questions I get are more about how I can't go and do a year abroad, or I'm locked into a job, I'm locked into these properties. I can't just get up and leave my job, which I don't think is really what anyone should be thinking about or considering doing anyway. So it's just more of a sensible way to enjoy myself now. And absolutely, there's no sacrifices from a general well-being point of view. It's not like that at all. Generally, good properties will cover themselves. So it's more just about that foot in the door, and it runs from there.
So it sounds like you're having your cake and eating it as well, right?
Ideally, yeah, I am. Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you want to be absolutely minted? Is that the goal?
Look, I think the first goal is to sort of be secure and have my family accounted for and have enough money not to be worrying about where the next paycheck's going to come from. But yeah, there's always in the back of my mind as well, there's always that push to really want to have it all and be able to be able to put some money into things that I know are good things, and put money into things that I know will grow as well in terms of businesses and things. But to do that and have a base to do that, I need to obviously have built that up. So yeah, it's not the primary goal, but definitely one of them.
If you do everything right along the way, that's probably a result of it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that's right.
So do you have an actual tangible goal though? Do you have something that says by the age of 30 I want this many properties worth this much money, or by 40 I want this? Have you sort of written that down, or have you thought about that?
I have, yeah. There was actually an article done in the AFR a couple of years ago, and it was 10 properties by 30, which obviously is on track at the moment. But as I go along, obviously things keep coming up, and there's there's expenses that come along with properties that you need to take into account. And that's why where you invest and what you invest in is very, very important to getting to a goal like that.
Okay, let's have a chat about that, because our listeners really love hearing about the makeup of people's portfolios.
Yep.
So you got 4 properties.
Yeah.
Let's run through them really quickly. So what's the first one? Where's it at?
The first one's in Riverwood, just down southwest of Sydney.
Okay, Riverwood. What'd you buy it for?
Bought it for $650.
$650.
Yeah.
That's your first property.
Yeah, that was with my sister though, so jointly.
Okay, so jointly, what's it worth now, you reckon?
It's worth about $940 now. That was the last valuation done.
$940. So when did you buy it at $650?
That was 2011, I think.
Okay.
Or 2012 maybe.
Okay, you've done well. So at $650 property in Riverwood, is that sort of near the train station, a newer type of build type place?
Yeah, it was a newish. I think it was about 10 years old. It was a townhouse.
Yeah.
And it's about a 5-minute walk from the train station.
Yeah.
School's very close by, as well as a supermarket close by. It ticked all the boxes from that angle.
Okay. So second property?
Second property was up in Townsville.
Okay.
In North Queensland. That one was only about $250, and I bought that through a property agent.
Okay.
Andrew Collett Sound Property. It's one of those ones. It's a townhouse as well, 2-bed townhouse. Which obviously you think of a 2-bed townhouse in Sydney, and you won't get it for anywhere near $250. So that's been a bit flat. I only bought that 2 or 3 years ago now. It's still reasonably flat, but I expect that will hit its straps in the next few years.
So do you reckon? What would you what sort of valuation would you get on now?
I'd leave it at $250.
You leave $250. Okay, I like that. Realistic. That's good. The third property you bought?
That's in Windsor, just outside Brisbane.
Okay.
That was bought for $325.
Yep.
And it's worth about $360 now.
Okay.
It's a little 2-bed apartment.
What's that sort of? You've been on that for a year or so?
Yeah, I bought that last April.
Okay.
Yeah.
A year and a bit. And your most recent purchase?
Most recent is actually about 3 weeks ago. It was in Penshurst, down in south of Sydney again.
Okay, it's not far from Riverwood, really.
That's right. Yeah, that was 571 for
571.
Yeah, for a 2-bed apartment.
And do you reckon you sort of bought that at market value, or did you get a good deal on it?
No, I think I got a good deal. It was actually there was an agreed price of 591 a few weeks before I actually came in and bought it. But
Okay.
something happened with the finance and with moving out. There was something to do with the owner didn't want to move out at a time that the buyer wanted to move in. So that actually fell through. And the agent told me that and showed me that, and I negotiated it down to 571, knowing that. Got a lot of potential to develop as well. A lot of as an internal renovation that can be done. Very, very simple things that'll really drive that.
Yeah.
That was the main.
So you reckon
attraction to that.
sort of, Vales around sort of 590?
Yeah,
sort
I
of
think it
600,
would.
yeah.
Yeah, there was an automated valuation done at 591 on that one.
Okay, that's pretty good. So you got a bit of equity in your portfolio already.
Yes.
What do you call it? Sort of 300, 400, between 300 and 400 grand.
Riverwood was actually my little cash cow, so
Yeah.
I used that to buy the last three.
Okay, so you've pulled equity out of that.
Pulled equity out.
So what are these all? So what's your sort of portfolio LVR now? Do you reckon?
It'd be about 85%.
Okay,
at the moment,
sort of
yeah.
85%. So for our listeners, LVR, if you're not familiar with the term, it means loan to value ratio. So that is the size of the debt versus the value of the asset. So 85, it's some people would say it was sort of on the high side. Some people would say you're very, risk averse. Some people thinking it should be at 95. So it's all about where you sit. My portfolio sits about 65, 67. But it sort of fluctuates depending if I'm pulling equity out. It'll go up and down and stuff like that. So you've gone New South Wales, so Riverwood, sort of southwest Sydney, Townsville up in Queensland, Windsor and Brizzy, and then sort of back to Sydney. So your most recent one is in Brizzy. In Sydney. Why did you invest in these particular properties in these areas?
So the Townsville one was it was bought reasonably soon after the Riverwood one, so I just wanted to get in again, and I really wanted to diversify it.
Yeah.
Obviously, the way property works, markets can go at different times, and there was a lot of talk about Sydney, being at its top, being at its peak, and there's been talk about that for a few years now. So what to believe and what not to believe, but I always wanted to be smart about it and make sure I wasn't putting all my eggs in one basket. So North Queensland and also Brisbane itself, I'd heard and I'd read a lot about that being the next place to kind of move. So waiting for that to happen.
Have you located these properties yourself? So you said that the Townsville place you found via
that was
an
through
agent?
a buyer's agent, but the Windsor place was by myself.
Okay, and then
Penshurst was by myself.
Penshurst by yourself.
Yeah.
So how did you go about identifying these properties, and talk us through the cycle of going, okay, I'm ready to buy again.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do from that point?
So the first part was it's just domain. It's as simple as going on domain and searching for the sort of price range I'm looking at in the vague area that I'm looking to buy in. And then once a property comes up at a particular suburb, I'll then go and research that suburb directly. So at work, being a broker at SmartMove, we've got access to RP data reports. We've got access to a lot of research about these different areas. So I look at the median prices there. I look at what's in the area. I look at the schools, the supermarkets, the jobs, the education, everything that's there. And I make sure that ticks all. There's about 4 or 5 different boxes I like to tick, those being that. So I think that's the potential, that's the growth, that's where it's going to come from. If people are able to live there and are able to, survive there and work there, and I think it's always going to be demand for those properties, and that's obviously going to drive the price.
Mitchell, I think it's interesting with the Penshurst property that you sort of got it for $571 when originally it had been almost sold for $590, and you mentioned that was kind of because you became aware of things falling apart and you could meet what the vendor wanted more easily than the other prospective buyer. What would your advice to other investors be to sort of capitalise on those deals? Because often you can get properties a bit cheaper if you do meet them halfway with contract terms or with settlement terms or whatever. That can be where you can really save money, but not all people know how to sort of find those deals and get in there.
Yeah. Look, it's really important to understand the vendor's position. The vendor in this case needed to sell because they needed to move into another property and settle on another property, and that's a massive one. If the vendor's in a position where they have to sell and the buyers there are a little bit few and far between, then you've got the power in that negotiation, which is really, really important. How you know that, I guess, is talking to the agent, looking at reports of when the property was bought. Little things like that can help you know that, because if you know that, I feel that's a gold mine, knowing there's a timeline on the other end. Having the power in negotiations is always what you're kind of looking for. And at the end of the day, you just need to think about it from the vendor's point of view. If you can pick it up for sort of $10,000 or $15,000 cheaper, for them to avoid all the stress of having to worry about not making a settlement or having to worry about not selling the property at all. As much as a vendor can play on a buyer's emotions, I think a buyer can play on a vendor's emotions at the same time in that way. And it's just all about their situation. A bit harder when they're not forced to sell. They're not in a hurry to sell. But I think in that situation, that's really, really where some money can be made.
And Phil, you've had that before, haven't you, where you've sort of negotiated on contracts and settlement terms to sort of make sure that you're the buyer that gets across the line?
Yeah, absolutely. I use a really good buyer's agent, the guys at Right Property, and they do a lot of this work for me. But you can arm yourself with so many different. When you're negotiating for property, you can arm yourself with so many different things that you can negotiate on. Obviously, you start with a price, and then once you get to a price, you'll get to a point where neither people will move either way. Then you can start negotiating on other terms associated, whether it's if you can offer a delayed settlement or quicker settlement, that might be something you can negotiate on. You can negotiate on early access. You can negotiate on a lot of things. So I think don't context any negotiation or frame a negotiation on, I've got to haggle on price. If you can be flexible in other ways, you can often get a lower price, but you can still meet the needs of the vendor. So, be smart about it. It's really good. So you're a PAYG employee, right? You get a pay slip and
Yes.
a salary every month, right?
Yep.
Did you do your own mortgages?
Yes.
Okay. Are they all with the same lender, or did you mix them up?
Or with CBA. Yeah.
Okay, you do it with CBA.
Mm-hmm.
So with CBA, you can get up to about $1 million for those guys in debt before they starts getting harder.
Yeah.
Was that one of the reasons why you thought I'll go with CBA and put most of it in there, or was there any particular reason why you chose that lender?
Well, I worked for CBA before I was a broker.
Okay.
And I know that shouldn't matter, but it does because I know their systems very well. I know the products really well. And for me, the rate, although important, is not the first and foremost what I look for. Knowing how I can change to interest only very quickly, or knowing how I can manage offset accounts and different things is really important to me. The CBA also know all my financials. They've got my salary coming into their accounts, and they've got all my loans sort of sitting on record. Whereas other lenders can put emphasis on existing debts that aren't with them. They can add buffers to the repayments, which can reduce what you can borrow. Little things like that, where I thought CBA had everything there. It was just much easier to go through and get things done quickly, and that's what I needed. I think, like both of you were saying, when you're in a position when you're negotiating on a property, having something ready to go and being able to make an offer and a serious offer very quickly can win you that property in a lot of situations.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So you've chosen CBA, and it could be any lender, but because you've probably banked with CBA for quite some time, they have all your records of the inflows and outflows of cash in and out of your account. Yeah. It's got to make their assessment, the serviceability assessment of you, a lot easier. Do you think there's anything else as a young bloke or as a young girl? How do you paint the best picture of yourself to a potential lender? So they'll give you the first mortgage, but then go on and give you 3 more. Is there any tips you've got in that regards?
Absolutely. I mean, unsecured debt is a real loser in terms of painting yourself a good picture of yourself to a lender. Someone who's seen to have not a lot of saving but a lot of credit card debt or a lot of personal loan debt, automatically lenders aren't silly. They're looking at that and thinking, well, hang on, how is this person going to afford a property if they've got all this debt and they're not able to save any money? So that's a massive thing. I don't have any credit cards, which is a big thing, and I've got all savings. I don't have any personal loans, and I don't ever want to get into that situation again. I mean, everyone can have a basic credit card, and I'm not talking a credit card with a $10,000 limit with nothing owing. I'm talking about credit cards maxed out with missed payments and personal loans with big balances on them with several different lenders. It just can paint a really bad picture, which is the opposite of what you want. So just having that cash savings, showing you've got the ability to save, even if you're showing a regular debit from your account labelled savings, which goes to a separate account, you can show them that account that says it's savings. I think that's a massive thing, especially for a younger person, because a big worry with the lenders with someone who might be 18 or 19 looking to buy their property is how they're going to afford it. They're going to be relying on mum and dad. They're obviously not going to have a huge employment history, so they need to see something else. They need to see something from them to show a bit of motivation to save and to pay a property off.
And a lot of those things are universal, whether you're young or old. The fact that you've got the same, you want to paint the best picture you possibly can to a lender. So if there's a whole bunch of unsecured debt and car loans and multiple credit cards with multiple lenders and stuff, it doesn't look very good.
Absolutely.
It doesn't look very good.
Not at all.
So do you think as you keep buying, you'll stay with the same lender for as long as you can?
Yeah, while they suit what I need to do.
Yeah.
There might be a point where affordability gets a bit tight and I might need to look elsewhere, and that's the advantage of being a broker. I've got that ability to look elsewhere and find a solution.
Yeah.
But while they're still able to give me the money I need, then I don't see any reason to leave them.
Okay. That's smart. So with the plans of your portfolio moving forward, I don't know how much money you earn, but you're a salaried employee. I imagine the makeup of your income is like part commission or bonus.
Yes, yeah.
But is it lumpy or is it pretty standard?
It's sort of an upward trajectory when you're a broker because of the trail side of things.
Okay, so that's a good picture for the banks, right?
Great picture.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's really good. So as you grow your portfolio, and the plan is to grow the portfolio, when's the next property, do you think?
Well, I've just bought. I think it'll be next year.
Okay.
I really want to build. I know a lot of aggressive investors will say go to 90 plus, but I want to be in a position where I've got a bit of room, I've got a bit of a buffer. To move if I need it. I can pull out equity as a buffer if I need it. So I'd prefer to be around that 80 mark if I can. So I'd probably look to wait a year, build up a bit more cash when the commissions start to really come through, and potentially sort of mid to late next year I'll go again.
That's good. And your portfolio as it sits right now, gross, like before tax and stuff, is it positively or negatively geared?
It's about even. I'd say if anything, negatively geared. So there's a little bit of a loss coming through, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, and it allows me to keep my cash on the side and go and rent somewhere. So I think it's a good thing that it is negatively geared.
Yeah. But once with the effect of once your accountant gets hold of everything and does everything, you do get some tax benefit out of it. Come tax time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the point there is have a good accountant. Did your dad do your accounts?
He does. He does.
I thought you were going to say that.
Mitchell, you've painted a pretty positive picture so far, but has anything gone wrong along the way? Any sort of nightmare stories or anything that you've maybe done wrong or any opportunities that you've missed?
There's always, you look back at properties you've bought and you think maybe, if I'd have bought in a different area, I could have done a bit better on this one. And there is some very stagnant, a couple of stagnant properties. I mean, one of them in particular up in Townsville has been a bit stagnant lately, which it affects you in the back of your mind. But that's the whole point of diversification. You're not going to have every property in your portfolio moving up at the same time. So it's really important to keep that focus and to keep that calmness about you when that does happen, because it's not a loss until you liquidate the property, until you sell it. So in terms of nightmare stories, not so far, and I hope it really stays that way, but I'm expecting and I'm ready for it if it does happen. That's the nature of investing, and it can happen, but if you invest well, it minimises that risk.
And you've had stable tenants, no really long vacancies or anything like that?
In all of them, absolutely. And that comes down to those key drivers I was talking about with employment and schools and shops. A tenant's going to be happy there. If I'm happy to live there, a tenant would be as well. So they've all been rented for pretty well the whole time.
And you get a property manager look after all your stuff?
All of them, yeah.
All of them?
Yeah.
Why do you do that?
To be honest, with work's pretty full on, and I just don't want to have that hassle. Again, it's for me, it's a tax deduction anyway, so that property management fee comes out and it's all tax deductible, so you get a bit back. And for the time I could spend writing, one or two more loans, it covers that anyway. So I feel like it's not worth the hassle and the stress.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah, all our stuff's managed. I haven't got the time or inclination. I don't want to fix people's washers or chase rents or whatever. My time's better spent. It's $20 an hour jobs versus that you shouldn't be doing. You should be doing the high value stuff. So So if you go back in time and catch yourself at 2011 when you started investing, what would you say to yourself that do this differently? With all your years of experience now.
Look, I think just make sure. I'd probably say to myself just to make sure you're looking in and you're looking at everything really, really properly. I think the first couple I may have just jumped in, maybe a little bit too early, a little bit earlier than I should have.
Yeah.
So I'd always say make sure you do your research and you know what you're signing up for, you know what you're getting into, because a bad decision can affect your ability to keep going as well. So not saying that any have gone too bad just yet, but I'd always make sure that I'm doing my own research, not listening to anyone in particular, doing your own research and being comfortable within yourself.
That's good. Yeah. So normally I'd sort of, we're running out of time, Viv.
We always are, Phil.
I know, that's the way normally I'd sort of give my sort of synopsis on the chat and say this is what I've taken out of it. That's how I like to operate. Go, okay, I've just got all this information. Here's the key points that I've got from it. But I reckon you should do it, Viv, because you're a Gen Y. It's like you guys are similar age, and similar situations. So if you were sitting at home and thinking about it, if you're thinking about getting property, irrespective of age, but what would you take from this chat?
What I like about Mitchell's story is that he concedes that he has made some sacrifices and is living for tomorrow, but he's not painting a picture of someone who's sitting at home on the floor eating one can of tuna a day and missing out on beers with his mates. He's still getting to go.
Is that the perception though? Like, most Gen Ys think that's got to be what it's like.
I don't want to disparage my generation because, again, I am totally team Gen Y, but I think the stories of some successful people are, I didn't travel, I didn't do anything. So it's very easy for us to then be like, well, I had a great time in Europe. I don't want to give that back. I don't want to not go out to the pub with everyone. I don't want to not know what the world is like. I don't want to work in a job that I hate. So it's very easy to sort of dismiss those successful people and think, oh, well, they're having such a boring life and they're definitely going to regret it when they're 40. So that's what I like about Mitchell is he's 24, he's got 4 properties, he's got a good job that he enjoys and that he's succeeding at. He's building a portfolio, he's thinking about retirement, but he's still going traveling. He still can take breaks. He still can go to the pub with his mates. He's not going without. And I think that that's the most important thing here is he's planning for tomorrow, but sort of living for today and for tomorrow. And I think that that's really great and probably a bit more appealing than tuna and pineapple slices or whatever it may be.
So do you reckon any sort of Gen Y, you probably see people as a mortgage broker that come in and they're earning $40,000 a year, right? $45,000 who are looking to invest in property, right? If someone rocks up and they've been in a job for a couple of years and they say, I want to get a mortgage, I want to buy an investment property, I'm happy to live at home with my mum and dad, $45,000 or $50,000 salary, you can typically make it work, can't you?
Absolutely, you can.
Yeah. So this is it, So everyone can do this.
Everyone can do it. I think the deposit, I think, for the first ones is the harder part. The affordability, because we've got so much access to different banks, we've got the ability to find that solution. But I think having that money to start with is probably where a lot of people fall. But I think that just comes down to where your entry point in the market is. You don't have to go and buy $1 million property first up. You can look at 200, 250, and just look for something smart, and hopefully that'll move for you a little bit, and you can run from there.
So it's about, not building up massive credit card debt, but massive personal loan debt. If you've got that, driving it down so you can get to a point where you can start saving money so you can get into it. It's about saving, Viv.
Absolutely.
It is.
Or tapping up your parents.
Or asking for a pay rise, Phil.
Yes. This is absolutely. If you want to start investing in property, tap up your pocket. Right. Still the right way. Yeah. It's cool. Anything else?
No, I think that was the main takeaway. I mean, one of Mitchell's properties he got for $250,000. So, look, the deposit for that wouldn't have been massive by any means compared to some sort of Sydney property prices at the moment. So, again, it's about broadening your horizons and not just looking at, inner city Sydney and thinking, oh, well, that's out of my price range, therefore I'm out of the game. Australia is a massive, massive country. There's lots of places to buy.
There is. And your first home isn't it's
not
the
your
dream
forever
home that
home,
you're
yeah.
your forever home. That's what I'm looking for. It's not your forever home. My first property was $190,000 or something like that. Financed it at 90%. It's cost me, $20,000. I had a property, with deposits and all this sort of stuff.
Good chat.
Yeah, it's all right. Look, mate, keep in touch. Let us know how you're going.
Thanks for having me in, Phil.
Yeah,
Appreciate
it's good. Obviously, you'd advocate using a mortgage broker.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You'd hope so.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? So if our listeners, irrespective of whether they're a Gen Y or a Gen X or whoever, they're looking to buy a property, how do you find, how would you go out and find a good mortgage broker? What would be your first step, your first tip to do that?
I think speaking to family and friends is a massive one. Everyone's bought a property. A lot of people have used mortgage brokers. Speaking to someone that they trust is a massive thing. That's how we work at SmartMove. We don't advertise. It's all family and friends and all word of mouth, so we can have that personal touch. But a mortgage broker at the end of the day is going to find you a solution where a bank directly may not be able to do. So, and there's no cost to go to a mortgage broker. There's no downside, I don't feel. So yeah, someone you trust is really important, though. Someone you can really, really speak to and get the best out of. And that's how we try and advocate it at SmartMove. It's really, really about the client and putting them first and getting the solution for them.
Cool. Good. All right. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Phil.
See you soon, Viv.
Thanks,
nice
Phil.
one. Remember to check us out, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. We're on all the social stuff, Facebook, Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Philip Tarrant. If you've got any questions for us, and please do send them in. We're getting heaps of them and we will answer them. Editor at smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Is there anything else I missed?
No, they can also email us if they want to come on the show, because we're always, as much as we do get sort of an inbox full of questions, not always an inbox full of people putting them forward, themselves forward to come on the show. So if you're interested in coming in and having a chat, just let us know.
It's pretty easy, right, Mitch?
Yeah, absolutely. Very comfortable in here.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.